Ah, it's morning again. I read that in 1 billion years the sun will have become so hot that it will boil off the oceans of the earth. 1 billion years. So I'm something else I just don't have to worry about. Um, in the late 1980s, I went to Jacob Javits Center at a big, you know, graphics and art exposition, and they were showing for the first time three-dimensional modeling and animation software. And I'd never seen anything like it before, and my brain went, I've never seen anything like that before. I got to incorporate that in the tools in my studio, only to find that it was like really complex, and it was in the early stages, and computers were just not that powerful, the ones that you could buy. Um, but I figured I got to deal with this, so I enrolled in at Pratt Institute because nobody knew anything about it. So I studied, and in learning, I had to go onto the internet and go into like chat rooms and forums to ask questions. And I had not known anything about the internet either. And it was, at the time, it was huge, but not compared to today. Most people only used it for research, which I was doing. And when I was in there, I discovered chat rooms in various social media that already existed. And shortly thereafter, I realized that a lot of people have no idea what they're talking about, and they argue all the time, even people who are professionals. So obviously now it's 2022 and I'm still on the internet, and the internet has exploded into billions of people all over the world. So I want to show you a couple of examples from basically, I think, around the middle 2000s. It's complicated how I'm not going to get into a backstory because I would never finish. I was in a chat room, and there was a discussion, and I used the word ironic humor. And one of the participants said, "That's redundant." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, ironic humor, irony is humor." And I said, "Well, no, actually, irony is irony and humor is humor, and then you can have ironic humor." She said, "No, it's the same thing." I said, "No, it's ridiculous." She said, "Look, I'm a writer. It's my profession, and I'm published." And I said, "Well, then we're going to have to do a semiotic deconstruction." And she said, "Semiotic isn't even a word." And I said, "Semiotic isn't a word. Look it up." She said, "Well, I just did." I said, "Well, then either spell it right or get a dictionary. I don't know what." And I said, "Look, if semiotic didn't exist, then in linguistics, in the Department of Linguistics, semiotics is not a discipline, and deconstruction and frame analysis is not the child thereof. And Ludwig Wittgenstein, who I've been studying for 15 years, didn't exist. And according to Ludwig Wittgenstein, you may not know what exists. Even if it's in a drawer, you don't know it's in there, but it's still in the drawer, and so does the drawer exist. And I know Ludwig, I even have a photograph of him." She said, "Well, you don't have to get aggressive." I said, "Well, I am aggressive by nature, but I'm not being aggressive towards you. I'm being aggressive towards this whatever this is." All right, so that's that one. We move on, right? So I'm in a chat room, and we're discussing painting, and someone says, "Look, I want to take my painting to a higher level. Can somebody suggest the best oil paints one can buy?" And someone said, "Winsor Newton." And I'm talking about like 2005, 2006. And I said, "I'm sorry, but Winsor Newton is far from the best oil paint you can buy." And they say, "Look, I've been painting for 15 years, and I know." And I said, "Well, I've been painting since the 1960s, and the last time Winsor Newton would be in the top 10 oil paints available commercially would be the early 70s. And we're now in like 2005. And it's because in the early 70s, they started adding filler. And they have more filler than the other paints." So the top 10, at any time you would type in, give me the top 10 oil paints, you would get Bloch, Ut Holland, Top Shelf Sennelier, Top Shelf Rembrandt, and then a number of others, and there would be 10. Winsor Newton would almost never be 10th. It would almost never get in there. It could sometimes. And the point, Winsor Newton is excellent oil paint, always has been. And it's expensive. But it's not as good as these others. These others have better spreading power, a better consistency, and it just lasts longer because of the spreading power and the way it's ground and mixed with the oil. I said the best thing you can do is make your own oil paint and work at the beginning of each year and make enough paint for the whole year, but that's very complex. So, Winsor Newton is great, but not as great as the great, and they're really expensive, because if Winsor Newton is expensive, Bloch, Haute Holland, Jesus, word. Okay, so here's the last one. I got to get this in here. This is going to go longer than we expect, but here you go. I'm in a chat room, and the chat room is called Metaphysics, and somebody's discussing God, and I said, look, well, first of all, God and religion is not a part of metaphysics. Philosophy can have a philosophy of religion and God and spiritual belief, but spiritual beliefs in God is not philosophy, but that's a discussion. But here's the problem. I said, if you believe in God and I am, and I don't know, I just don't know. I'm not an atheist. I'm agnostic, meaning I just don't know. So if you believe in God, and God is such a big thing, and if the universe was created by God and you believe in him, why is it that if I just don't know, it makes you angry? And he said, I hope you go out and get hit by a taxi cab. And I said, it's weird. When I hear somebody discuss God, I don't want to hurt them. I may not agree with them, or I might think it's ridiculous. But so I said to him, so according to God that you believe in, what is the teleological purpose of the universe? And he said, well, what does teleological mean? And I said, well, you could have just looked it up, but if we're discussing philosophy and we're discussing the philosophy of religion, and you're discussing God, and you don't know the word teleological, it just means that you haven't really read anything about any of this. And I don't understand. And he said, you should get killed. You should die. And I said, I've known you for many years now. We've been doing this for 10 years. Well, not 10, but probably 5 years. And I've known you, and you always seem like a pretty decent person, but we never discuss religion and God. And now that you show this to me, I'm never going to discuss anything with you ever again. I don't wish you ill, but don't talk to me. Okay, that's it. How long?